Welcome to the Primal AF podcast where peak performance meets modern wisdom. Today, we have a great guest, Martha Wright, a shaman who guides cacao rituals. What do you know about cacao and how it helps you in finding purpose, personal growth? Well, she's going to fill us in. She's going to run this masterclass, and let's get started. You could grab
Hi.
it. What's going on?
Okay. Oh, here we go. I have my hikara for the cup, and I got it in here because I gotta start without making a giant mess
I
everywhere.
know, I'm doing the same thing. I have it in.
Great. Well, I'm jumping in. Here we go.
I'm just following along.
Okay. See if I can do this without spilling. She says, dubious of her own skills. Oh my God, I did it! Who would have believed it? Okay.
So would you do
So-
around like 5 or 6 ounces?
That's what you did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, 5 to 7. That's the kind of the ceremonial dose size. Assuming you do it with the ceremonial dose of cacao, but otherwise, if you do like small doses throughout the day as like a health benefit drink, it's okay if you do a little bit more. I tend to drink more when I'm just drinking it for my own self, but more water, that is. So I just invite you to take a couple deep breaths, holding the cacao, smelling its rich aroma, its beautiful mix of rich and sultry but bitter. And as you're breathing with it, feeling gratitude for the ancestral farmers, the Mayan people who, of the Kachki Nation, is who the cacao I'm drinking from, and their ancestral practices, their earth tending, their land cultivation. To the women in the lineage who produce, who roast and grind and make the paste, to the sacred waters and the sacred volcanoes that hold that land, to the hands that prepared the shipment and brought it here, to those who carried it, whether or not they realized it, to the land over all the earth. For it is her who gives us this medicine and the elements that make it possible, the fire, water, earth, and air. To the plants and the animals that tend cacao as well as us, the ancestors who are the wisdom keepers, the lineage bearers, the truth holders, who support the Mayan communities who prepare this cacao, but also those ancestors of our bodies and spirit, and the ancestors of the land that we are on now. This moment is possible because of all of them and all of the divine. This convergence of many miracles and accidents, consequences, and opportunities that brings us here together. And for that, I am most grateful. And for the cacao, I am most grateful for being the medicine that stewards my heart to be open and compassionate in times of chaos and confusion. And to be the wayfinder and the way shower of what is possible with an open heart. Thank you.
Thank you. One, that was
Yeah.
amazing. And yeah, I want to thank you for like introducing me to cacao in general. I think coming on here, I think I'm just just massively like just curious because we've been texting. You have like a wealth of information. I'm like, where do you get all of this from? It's
Also, did we do an introduction? Should I introduce
really
myself?
good. My curiosity got the best of me, but yeah,
I was just all in it. Yeah. So,
is
okay.
like I mean, to me, you are just the expert in right now energy and psychoactives, and specifically cacao. But yeah, how would like it?
Well, no, I was just going to say my name is Martha. Hi. I'm a shamanic medicine woman based in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm certainly not an expert in anything. I'm just a really great listener, and so I have experience. I have my own wisdom that I've learned from human teachers and spirit teachers, and then of course I get the joy of channeling through that which I don't know, and sometimes will be told to share as wisdom from spirit. But no, I'm honored by those words. Thank you. But um, yeah, shamanic medicine woman based in Celtic lineage, and also medicine woman with cacao, which is really exciting. Learning more every day.
What give
Learning
me
more
both?
every day. Well, being a natural academic, I guess. I just no. In all serious, I'm not really. I'm actually the worst kind of academic because I don't take anything too seriously, and that's like the most unacademic. Everyone's like big word talk, and I'm like, I don't. What are we saying here? Um, no, but in all serious, I think I've just had a lifetime of being incredibly curious. I grew up. I just was very fortunate to grow up moving all over the world. My dad worked for the government, and so we moved every 2 to 3 years. And in doing so, I mean, culture shock was like the norm because we either were living somewhere with a different language, different fashion, different, environment, different everything. We would actually, we would go on trips just even like to visit like our grandparents, and I'd be like, can we drink the water here? And they're like, yes. I'm like, is the milk powdered? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay. And so, we just went out because we used to have to drink powdered Utz milk mixed with water for milk. Oh, it was awful.
Can't imagine.
It was so gross. Changed my life when I had real milk, but then turns out I have a dairy allergy. So, joke's on me.
It
But
also changes things.
it also changes things. But no, so I think I spent my life being so curious and being so open to the beauty that is everywhere. And yes, everything in balance, right? Where there is beauty, there's also despair and sadness. But the truth is we can choose to see beauty, and it's not necessarily bypassing. If we embrace that sadness is a part of what makes life difficult and beautiful. But nonetheless, you were asking about cacao. So I think I was so I finally, lived my life, went to college, had my 20s quarter life crisis that then led me to energy work, went down some rabbit holes, didn't all work out for me. And then threw it all away and was like, I don't know. And I didn't realize in the moment what I was doing was a massive release, like a massive surrender to spirit and being like, the fuck is happening? Like, I can feel things are out there. I can feel this connection, but nothing's making sense. I feel weird trying to figure it out through this avenue and this avenue that are so popular and expected. What's going on? And then that's when, a year or so later, I finally heard the call to shamanism. I was stubborn. So it took a while, and it took me getting chronically ill to get there, but I finally got there. And it was in my first shamanic apprenticeship that I learned about cacao. And someone just casually mentioned it, and my ears perked up. And because I had such a fear around releasing control, that the idea of doing any plant medicine freaked me out. But here is something that's chocolate. I love chocolate. I know chocolate. Chocolate and I are best friends. And it doesn't make you high and take away your sense of control and agency. I'm in. And so that's when I started kind of doing some research, being curious, learning about like what's the difference between chocolate and cacao. What's the difference between cacao that you could buy just kind of casually at the store versus indigenous supported cacao? And indigenous supported meaning co-created with an indigenous community, or indigenous sourced and manufactured, rather, manufactured is the wrong word, but produced. And so there's different layers, and I did a lot of trial and error. I would try things and I'd be like, oh, I kind of liked that, or I didn't like that. That one felt happy, that one did not feel good, And so because I'm doing this concurrently with opening up my connection to spirit with all these different apprenticeships that I was doing at the same time. So I just kind of like deep dove into all of it at once. And so being open to the spirit of the medicine meant it's not just letting the medicine of the cacao drink opening my heart. It was me tapping into, who are you? Who is tending you? What is your voice? What is your purpose? And what do you want to see with me, through me? And so I think that kind of, I think in a way it was a bit of a calling, but also in a way it was just an opportunity that I opened up my heart saying, wow, I can really feel you softening me. And how can I honor you? And so she's like, yeah, let's go. And then that kind of led me down the path of working with cacao as medicine.
You said like, can you get into some of those things? Because one of the first questions or the first things that you said, I mean, I had a lot of questions. It's like, cacao is not a psychedelic, it's a psychoactive. What's the difference?
Yeah. So the way I kind of describe it is a psychedelic will, and some of them are amazing. I'm not discounting them at all. I think when used wisely and with the right support and integration support and the right medicine person, it can be life altering in the best ways.
I could vouch for that.
But a psychedelic will just like, it's like the Kool-Aid man. It like bursts through the wall and is like, we're going, and your whole like goodbye to everything. And I remember being my first hero's dose journey. I literally was like running to memory, like, how did I get here? What brought me here? And why am I here? And who am I? And I kept running, and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel just going farther away. And I was like, but where am I? And who am I? And now I needed that. I needed to be submerged into the void because I had control issues that psilocybin was like, we're not doing this anymore. But that's essentially what a psychedelic journey is it, you kind of oscillate in and out of awareness, because you're in the medicine journey. The journey with the medicine spirit is taking you on a path. So you're really surrendering to it. Whereas a psychoactive, like cacao, you are fully coherent. You feel the medicine in the sense that it works with the medicinal properties. So like the minerals, the vitamins, the anandamine, things like that are very blissful. And so they bring you senses of euphoria and relaxation and focus if that's kind of your intention. But you're fully coherent. You can operate heavy machinery. You can parent without concern. You're still here. You're still Jimmy. I'm still Martha, and fully capable of being. And so this is one of those levels of intervention that I think in the greater scheme of healing, we say like talk therapy is a great first one. If that's not solving it, we go into the flower essences or the psychoactives. So the things that will work with your energy, like an adaptogen. So we see that a lot with adaptogenic mushrooms, not so much psychedelics. If that doesn't work, go into the energy healing. And if that doesn't work, the psychedelics. And if that doesn't work,
you navigated me towards, you said there was like different, maybe different origins, like some from Africa and some from Mexico. Like how do you tell the difference?
Yeah, they have different personalities, which is kind of fun.
So this is my third time taking it. The first time I I pretty much just did what you told me to. It was like right about a gram, and then the second one was about a gram and a half, 2 grams. I remember.
You mean an ounce?
Oh, sorry, yeah, an ounce.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And at first I was like, I don't know what I'm looking for. And you were like, yeah, maybe today is just like an introduction to the spirit. And then after that, like going, I guess, through this with you today, I feel like it's like I'm blessed to have like almost like somebody to guide me through that. Because when you said euphoria, I was sitting here just kind of looking. I'm like, man, I feel really good right now. Maybe it's just the environment, but like, how do you tell the difference between I don't know, like a placebo effect and get it and like guided through something like this, and then the actual cacao?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I will answer that. But first, we'll start with the former answer
Yeah, I threw a
question of
lot at you,
like,
my bad.
so they all have different personalities,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I find that Mexican and Guatemalan cacao is a little bit more shamanic, whereas like Costa Rican, Ecuadorian, Colombian, well, I guess the more Colombian is a little bit more like kind of like in between, like a static dance. Like it's a little shamanic, it's a little playful, whereas like Peruvian cacao is it's just love, just so much. And I mean, they all feel like love, but the ones that I've had that are based mostly like Colombia and South America are really love based, whereas like the Mexican Guatemalan is like, we're focused, we got shit to do, you know. And then you go into parts of Africa like um, Nigerian, Ghana, cacao that's coming out of those areas, really creative. Like, oh my God, when I drink them, I'm like, let me do something. I want to go for, well, I don't run, but I want to go for a run and I want to paint and I want to bake. And now we're starting to see farms in like Vietnam, Thailand, areas in central, not Southeast Asia that are in that 20-degree north and south band of the equator where you can grow very rainforesty coverage, right conditions, good soil. And so we're starting to see it come out. I haven't tried any from there yet, but I'm really excited for it. You know, and the shamans said, and the in the Mayan lineages that are producing cacao for the world, they say that, you know, the stories were told of the old shamans that one day the world will be in such a state of pain and suffering that cacao will explode from everywhere and help save the world and open hearts. And here we are seeing it being grown in parts of the world that historically didn't do that.
That's
But
crazy.
because it's community supported agriculture, it's healthy. It's 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 amazing. And so placebo versus genuine, well, a lot has to do with your intention, right? So, how you are showing up to the medicine, whether it's cacao or psychedelics or energy work or flower essence or even a therapy session, a talk therapy, how you show up is a huge impact on your experience. An open heart and an open mind is going to go a long way no matter what avenue of intervention you're working with. It's only when you get to like the allopathic, you know, modern medicine and the psychedelics that if you come in with a shit attitude, they're going to knock you on your side and be like, you don't get to control this, friend. And then you're like, oh God.
Is that what my
But
friend just said? Like that's where he got nailed with a bunch of sage. Like, hey, before you come in here.
yeah, just like a lot of purifying happening. Um, but so the placebo cacao, I don't, I, I think you're not going to find that if you get organic, handmade, indigenous community created or supported cacao, there's you can't have a placebo effect. However, people who go in with a closed mind and are cynical because, you know, they're afraid of feeling joy and love because it, you know, one of the things that cacao can do for someone is it opens their heart. It has so much love that sometimes people get really moved and they cry and have an emotional release because not everyone has felt such genuine, unconditional love. And that is what comes through with the plant spirit. So some people don't want to feel that. Or some people are just really nervous and cynical or doubtful. And so they're like, I didn't feel anything. I also find that those are the same people who are like, this is too better. And then they don't actually drink it. Yeah, I've done a few cacao circles, and the people who are the most vocal about it not working are the ones whose cups are 2/3 full.
Interesting.
And I'm like, well, you can't, you know, if you put your pants on just to the knee, you're gonna get like it's not gonna work. That's not putting on your pants. Like, drink the cacao.
Funny. Yeah, I mean, I, yeah, there is like I guess a certain archetype of person that like, you know, I'm kind of skeptical, but I mean, I'm very open to it. Like, I drank it the first time, and I had some people like, "Hey, what's it like?" I'm like, "Well, it tastes like dirt." And they're like, "Well, what did you?" I didn't put any honey in it or anything.
No, yeah, sure.
Because I like what you said, like you're a purist. I'm like, I want to get the full thing, but like I'm like for ghost, I am skeptical about seeing a ghost until I see a ghost. I'm
Mm-hmm.
open to it. I mean,
Yeah.
but same thing with cacao. Like I'm very open, and it's fun. Did we talk about my tattoo? Because you said like
No.
leading with the heart, and that's like Eric. I got a tattoo. One was my mom, and I had to get it finished. And I'm like, well, what should I get? I don't want it to be cheesy. I want it to be meaningful. And Erica sent me a picture. She's like, "What about the symbol Allin, Allin? It's an Aztec symbol for a warrior that leads with the heart." And I got it on my shoulder. Well, I can't pull it off, but like I got it on my shoulder, right here, and it comes like all the way down. But it's a well,
Here we go. Oh, wow.
but
That's really gorgeous.
but she came up with it, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that is me." And then it's just weird, not weird. I say weird a lot, but it's interesting how the universe brings in the things like cacao and like this energy, and then was like, there's no coincidences, and especially like with clarity and what this is supposed to bring, or what I like for it to bring is like it is the clarity and it is the purpose, and especially with this, I guess we talked about like the seasons that we're in. Like sometimes it just feels difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I love chocolate, right? But speaking of placebos, like baking chocolate and chocolate that you get at the store, that's been modified and moderated and manufactured in non-ancestral ways, and so you're not going to get the same effects. And so when we sit, oh shit, my brain just farted. What did you just say? Because I was saying that in to come back to what you were just saying. Oh, no coincidences.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I think I was just talking about how just the universe, like with everything, it's like the sum of things that just brings everything together. There are no coincidences on why the intention that you go into are some of the things that I'm looking for. Like with it being, we were again talking about the seasons of like the difficult. I don't know.
Well, right, the different seasons. Right. Yes. And so having the dopamine hit of sugar and fat and chocolate from the store is great, but it's not going to be the same as working with the plant medicine, which comes from that very well, it's handled differently. It's a completely different process. And so, yeah, like when we are in different seasons, like there was a time where I was going through a bit of a detox while also kind of going through some pretty serious ego dissolution around labels and titles and who did I think I was supposed to be and how. And and I didn't have cacao at all. And I reflected on that. And then, I mean, I would eat chocolate because I was like, the girl's got to have something. And but it wasn't cacao. And after I was brought back in to working with her, it kind of dawned on me like, well, yeah, sometimes we have to go through the hard shit and we have to face it all without filter. And we don't get our hand held through it all. Like, because we can be brave and we can see how strong and brave and courageous we are and enduring we are when we aren't having our hand held by a plant medicine. And so, to say it differently, cacao stepped back so I could do some really hard work and not bypass or not fully feel it because I was feeling love in my heart rather than feeling the truth, which was absolute panic and fear of what does it mean to not be the perfect student, the perfect wife, the perfect mom, the perfect this, or the most well read, the most experienced, the most this or that. Because in truth, I have nothing new to say. And that was one of the hardest lessons, was feeling like, what do you mean? I've done all these years of learning and apprenticeships and healing in myself so I could hold others in the depths of their pain. What does it mean to be that great thing that I've created in myself? And then also see that, oh, wow, there's a fuckload of other really great people too. And what I know and think and see and feel isn't really unique. I am unique. How it comes through me is
Right.
unique in the sense that it's through this filter that's me. But I'm not special. I'm not, there's no pedestal here. And so, like, to feel that after a lifetime of believing, like Hermione Granger, that I could be this valedictorian of this experience, was to surrender to, like, what does it mean to not be that,
So
to
was it
be
like a
something else?
was it, so you said it was like an ego, I forgot what you said, ego death. So Cacao played a like the role, like a role in helping that.
I think so. I mean, Cacao and she's, well, and you were asking earlier about the she thing, and I'll
Yeah.
speak to the gendering of it, and that's just a personal choice, and I can explain why in a second. But she has worked with me for a couple years now, or a few years now, and it was kind of on and off, and then it became really routine, and then all of a sudden it was just like, no, no more. I was going to go buy some to replenish my stock, and it was like, nope. I said, okay, and I don't. And so that's when I started going through this ego dissolution, these layers peeling off of me of like, it's okay to not be this, that, or the other that I had defined myself as. Like,
Real quick,
mhm.
that no, where, and I'm asking out of curiosity because I'm like, where do you hear that speak to you? Is it like more in like your stomach or like your head, or like where do you hear that?
Yeah, so everyone has multiple ways that psychic gifts work. So everyone has the ability to be one of four major gifts or more. We start with one that's the strongest, and then as we build that relationship and that lexicon, that language with it, the other ones start to turn on. So I'm not prioritizing one over another, but clairvoyance is one that typically people really rely on because we're so visual of a creature. So clairvoyance is this psychic seeing. So you'd see pictures in your mind, or you might actually see repetition of messages out in the world. You have claircognizance, which is just like a knowing. And a lot of times it shows up like a thought. But that thought is sometimes like, well, that's obvious, but I didn't even think about that. It's those kinds of thoughts like, well, where did that thought come from? And now, of course, again, this is a really tricky one because sometimes we have really weird fucking thoughts because we are animals and we have instinct, and our brains and our bodies have their own minds sometimes. But if you have a thought that comes in and it comes with this sense of curiosity, interest, or lightheartedness, like, oh, this is good, then that's probably your intuition speaking through your knowing. When we have thoughts that then make us feel really gross or afraid or something, those aren't usually our intuition. Those are usually our instinct or our animal thoughts. And so our body's wisdom will sometimes speak through knowing and feeling. I know it's tricky. I'm sorry
No,
for making this like
I'm trying to
parsed out.
follow. So
I'll recap real quick. Our body's wisdom will also speak through instinct. Don't go down that dark alley, or don't eat that spinach that's been sitting out for 3 days.
like a gut feeling based off
Right?
of
Like
percent.
we have that knowing as well, whether as a thought or at the felt in the body. So that is also, that instinct is also wisdom. And I don't mean to displace that because that's a very important wisdom that people will oftentimes override as well with what we're taught to think and feel and believe. But going back to intuition, so it could be pictures, seeings, right? It could be knowing, a thought that's very divinely dropped in our mind. It could be a hearing, so you hear a reprise or like a phrase from a song or a poem or a movie or something that just plays through your mind. It could be hearing like that. It could also be hearing of sounds. It could be hearing in patterns. And then feeling. And feeling is going to be that kind of gut instinct that a lot of people talk about. It's that feeling through the body. For me, it's like a happiness and a jubilance, like a lighting up through my shoulders if it's a yes. And it's a heavy pit in my stomach, crunching down kind of discomfort, like, ugh, that doesn't feel very good if it's a no. So when I heard the no about like, okay, let me go buy some more, it was like I had this thought of like, do we buy it? And I was like, wait, what? And so then that made me say like, okay, wait a second. And then I paused and I took a breath with it. And I said, should I replenish our stash of cacao? And then I felt a no in my body. And I just heard the word patience. So for different people, it may just be one of these things. Because I have about 20 years of really trying to work through honing my connection and communication. And please know that in that 20 years, like 10 to 12 of which I was awful at it. I was so bad. But I did a lot of trial and error in those 12 years to get to the point where I am now. And then I was like gangbusters with it. So anyway, for me, because I really focused on the visuals, which is where I started, and the feeling came in so loud, and then the knowing, and then the hearing. And so everyone's a little bit different. Some people will have smells, tastes. Yeah, it just all depends on the person. But honing that intuitive gift is a really important thing that everyone's capable of doing.
I like that you said that because I'm thinking of like, all right, so I've been journaling every day for probably, I don't know, going on 6 months again consistently. And one of the things that has come up is almost like a disassociation between mind and body. Um, I think let's see, it's 2026. I'm probably like 5 years into like a very intentional personal growth where I was almost like a Neanderthal, like, just trying to, keep feelings in and almost like old school toxic masculinity type things, right? And then growing, like learning that vulnerability is a strength and learning through that. So I'm like every step is always like the biggest step of, it seems, right? And the last thing that just came up was kind of crazy. It was almost like that my mind is evolved and is ready for the future. And currently, my body is still stuck with the states of stress and almost addicted to, um, almost like that work hard to play hard kind of mentality where it's not easy. And I'm like I just see a big correlation between medicine and just almost like reconnecting the two, if that makes sense.
100%. It makes perfect sense. And let's also consider the fact that you live in a modern world where hypermasculinity is the expectation. It is what we are conditioned, even women. And I don't, let me just dispel this idea of gender as man versus woman.
Right.
Okay. So as we all or maybe we don't know, the feminine is really seen as like this moon energy, this water energy. It's very intuitive flow. It is that Shakti, that electric force. It is, and then the masculine is that structural, supportive discipline. It is protection. It is action. It's the sun. It is life-giving, right? In the sense that it is energy-giving, I should say.
Yeah.
The female is really life-giving. So the new moon is something that grows roots. I'm sorry. The moon grows roots and height of the plant. The sun nourishes it with energy and gives it food. So it's like being and doing. It's these two things. Let me that I feel like I did not make that clear enough.
No, like
But
there's a couple books, like one, The Way of the Superior Man, that we follow. I told you, Open Her, which, yeah, it does like it takes the guy and the girl out of it, and it describes it as like energy. So like there's masculine
exactly.
energy and then there's feminine energy, and
Exactly.
both sexes have both. But sometimes like my wife, she has a lot of masculine energy, and I have feminine energy. I not obviously, but I lead with masculine, and but
Sure.
sometimes she does too. And then sometimes with that, with the pull of that, it's not good or it's not bad. It just is. There could
Right.
be headbutting, or it could be just like a relentless force.
Right. And I mean, it's depends on also what season we're in. I mean, summertime is that yang, expressive sun, whereas winter is that moon, that inward and yin. Like it's so that can also impact how we show up. But we live in a world where hyper masculinity in the sense of doing is the priority.
Mhm.
And men, especially our age and older, and in some cases younger ones even today, um, anger is social currency
Mhm.
where the person, the individual has feelings, these emotions, and instead of feeling them, and vocalizing them. They are told boys don't cry, and maybe not so much anymore, right? I think we're reparenting that in a new way. But in some ways, the individual, as a collective, if you will, was told, keep it together. I don't want to hear it. We don't have time for this, or you're not allowed to, or shut up. Your emotions don't matter, because what's happening is the child is triggering the inner child of the adult in this situation. And
Mm,
the adult who was not nourished and nurtured as a child then doesn't know how to do it for their child. So that's why parenting and reparenting oneself
right.
can be really hard. And so I want to acknowledge that for any parent who may not get it right every single day. I certainly don't. I'm doing my best, and I acknowledge when I mess up. Nonetheless, back to the point of the masculinity. When we shove it in and shove it in and shove it in favor of getting back out to doing, producing, active, in favor of, being who we're expected to be as a doer, that masculine energy, we suffocate the inner feminine, and we don't allow the feelings to come out and through. As we age decades later, we are now a container filled with unfelt emotions, unprocessed traumas, and we're out here talking way too much because we've never actually been heard, overworking and burning ourselves out because we want to be seen, or we want to feel that we've been appreciated, or we're angry and we're just reactive. And when I said the thing about social currency, for men especially, an angry man is a respected man. If a man throws a fit, everyone stops what they're doing and gives him space, or they're
Right.
saying, whoa, look at this guy. But that's not strength, and that's not how we get respect, right?
Yeah.
It is through recognizing that, wait a second, this individual, or we as a society, are prioritizing unhealthy beingness. Like, we're prioritizing these things. And cacao is emerging as this medicine, is saying, let's open that heart up. Let's open that up and let's let some of those feelings out. Because as we open up that pressure valve and we start to let the emotions filter out, whether it's emotions from yesterday or when we were 3 years old, or even before that, right? When we let these emotions out, we open up space in our body for that intuitive wisdom to come back in. So by feeling, releasing, and healing, we make space for the balance to start to come back. And so through open-heartedness, through compassion, through heart medicine, things like anger as social currency no longer holds value in our bodies, because we start to realize it's just hot air. It doesn't hold anything. And we start to say, okay, well, if I'm angry, why? What am I really upset about? Because anger is just a red flag on the field that just says, someone's offended my boundaries, or someone has hurt me. I'm upset. Okay, so what's under that anger? Because especially for men, a lot of that anger is just the crust hiding a cake of grief, of loneliness, of disconnection or fear. It really depends on the individual, but the anger is just the surface layer. And what's underneath there is really what needs to be seen. And whether working with an energy worker such as myself or another healer, or working alone like you've started doing with Cacao, it allows us to start to say, okay, I'm going to dig in because I don't feel alone. I'm feeling held by a very sacred medicine that's telling me my heart is safe right now.
So a lot
And
of it is safety then, because
yeah,
I mean, I always go back to, I mean, I like the new world definition of where masculinity is going, and it's not the like beating of the chest, but it's really like being stable and kind of like what you said, being grounded when there is anger or something comes up. It's like, all right, maybe let's work through this and see what's going on, because like in the back of my mind, I I know that, the last time that boys or men feel appreciated is like it's well before 13 years old. That's probably the last time they get like serotonin and like good hugs from dads. And after that, it's like
yeah,
building of being a man, be tough, do the
yeah,
thing. But the more that me fathers or the masculine could like show that, hey, this is what we do and this is how we take care of each other, and it's okay to cry. um it's okay to feel feelings, it's okay to talk about it. We
Yeah.
could lead from there, and that breeds, better and a better, I guess, world view of masculinity, what it means today as opposed to what it meant in like the 80s.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I was working with a client once, a man who whose sense of self-worth was really centered around sexuality and being sexually active. And to kind of boil it down, like we first started unpacking what is sacred sexuality. Sex is used a lot of times as a pressure valve release, right? We're stressed up, we're pent up, let me go get laid. And an orgasm is a really great stress reliever. But if we are constantly using our partner's body as a stress ball, that body of our partner doesn't feel held. And especially if we're in a kind of heteronormative, intimate relationship. I mean, this still applies for queer relationships, absolutely. But women, I'm speaking specifically to women and male, so that heteronormative dynamic, women are taught to absorb and by our culture, and men are taught to express. And so if we're constantly expressing this intensity into a person's body, that body recedes and doesn't feel safe because it's not being seen and loved and held. And yes, it does boil down to safety. And I know there are so many people say you can't guarantee safety. Sure, fine. Yes, I understand that. But in this situation, if you think about the tenderness of a Sunday morning in bed, a man holding a wife, and right, and or partner, queer partner holding queer partner, there's a tenderness there, a lovingness, right? Where one partner, and I'm not going to say which one, it doesn't matter, but one partner is holding the other. And the one that's being held is feeling so much love that they are infusing that holder with passion. That's that Shakti electric energy. And then that protective energy is that a kind of young, expressive, protective, masculine energy. And so that's a great, beautiful version of balance. And so I was explaining to that partner, if you start treating intimacy with love and tenderness and softness, your partner will open up like a flower. And then you can be seen and held in such a safe way that your deep stuff will start to open up. And so we kind of started with that, and we worked through the fact that deep down underneath so much of it was fear of shame.
Yeah.
That as a teenager, just a really awkward teenage moment with the partner at the time went wrong, and it stuck with him. And then it turned into some really aggressive, kind of heartless passion in his later years, which became a big problem. And so then unpeeling that and getting back to that original time, healing his inner child or his inner teen, releasing the karmic connection between those two individuals, bringing that soul retrieval back to the heart, and working around what does it mean? How can we redefine and reparent the self? Now that we have this wisdom and we no longer feel the frustration, pain, embarrassment, shame, anger, and resentment, those are all gone. So now that we're free of that, that's that pressure valve, right? Releasing. Now that we're open, what wants to drop through on a soul level to see this differently? So that way we can be free in the present moment to make new choices, and to do so with a sense of empowerment from the heart.
So when you first started the story, I'm thinking like, oh, maybe it's more about intention, like in the moment, like the presence, but it doesn't sound like that's the case, because now I could relate with that guy. There was in the sense that there was like a traumatic experience that shaped how you drive yourself. It's almost like it seems like it's incredibly difficult. Well, it doesn't seem like it is incredibly difficult to go back and repair all of that. I mean, I've been like, see, how do I put this? I could relate in the fact where, like, when I went to jail a while ago, it was back in 2011, but there was a lot of shame built around that label. And, through a lot of work, I think the biggest release I had was during like a men's retreat, and it was just coming to terms with that. It's like, hey, how did you feel? It's like my arms were tied behind my back. It's like, how does it feel now? And like in handcuffs, like, how do you feel now? It's like, fuck, like I have them free now. And when we were talking about emotions before, I just started bawling in front of like 10 people. I was like bawling,
Yeah.
right? And I couldn't exactly name the emotion. It wasn't like sadness or happiness. It was just a
Right.
lot of emotion at once.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. It is a lot of work.
And in that safety in that situation, and with a good healer, it's not that there are physical safety things put in place. The door is locked. No one will get in and see you like this. It's about non-judgment.
Yeah.
It's about open-hearted acceptance of who this individual is in their most broken or their most put together or something in between or all of it.
Now, is that
It-
judgment from self or judgment from other people?
that the individual is feeling.
Hmm.
It's both.
Yeah.
100% both. It's judgment of the self because of what our family might think, because of we know better and we should have done different, because of what the world would say about me. And then it's judgment from the people who we do see in our lives, who have known about whatever this vulnerability is, and then looked at us with misunderstanding, not sure how to respond, nervousness about their own experience. What does this mean about me? That what would happen if that were me? A lot of times people are so caught up in their own response to what that other individual is going through that they're not even thinking about what am I giving them right now, verbally and non-verbally. What am I doing to that? How am I responding to this person? Because they're so like, oh my God, I could never. Oh my God, what if, and then that individual who's sharing their vulnerability is seeing, well, they're not seeing acceptance. They're seeing processing. They're seeing, whatever it is
Some
that
sort of-
causes them to go back in a little bit more because it's scary. No one wants to feel that. And so to be open like you were, Jimmy, not only with the individual holding that space, but with the individuals in that space, and to be seen in your vulnerability without anyone reacting. Everyone just being in the zone of, let me hold space for you to be seen with compassion, with love, with non-judgment, or maybe a mix. That is, holy shit. I mean, that is, that is it. That is the medicine. That is what we can offer each other, because ultimately your experience truly has no implication on my life. So why should I have a response?
Yeah.
You know,
I think
my response should just be openness.
it's
Sorry.
like a hard rewiring because like ever since then and even before that it's always like there's always a competitive nature. So it's competitive in work, and then well, I was in sales, so competitive in sales, and it's always go. And where the shame was brought in is like, hey, because I have this label on me, I have to work twice as hard to make sure. I have to try and overcome this past stigma of what that identity was. And it's like it's almost like a shadow work. I guess the disciplines from there, they just kept on stacking. It's like I have to get to the next mountain. I have to get to the next mountain. And a common and recurring theme is I forget to stop and look, and it's like, dude, the view is great. Look at how far I traveled up at this hard big mountain, and like I forget to stop and look at the view. It's always
Yeah.
like, it used to be like always where's the next one. So it's a lot of like I don't know how you would describe it, maybe like self-appreciation or self-love, because I thought I needed that in other people, mostly like my wife. Like she doesn't appreciate me. It's like, nah, sometimes I don't appreciate myself.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, the people in our lives are mirrors of what we do and don't want to see in ourselves,
Hmm.
which is why when a lot of people will say like, oh, I hate this person. Well, why? Well, because they're like this. Is that something that you can resonate with? And a lot of times people are like, no, never. And
No.
it's like, well, maybe deep down there is something there.
Well, it's the
But
same
I want
thing.
to sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I want to touch on something that you did say, which is that you felt the need to work twice as hard to overcome the stigma.
Hmm.
What if you didn't have to? What if it was a choice to carry that burden to prove to yourself that you could overcome it? Think about the individual who carries a knapsack full of potatoes up their back, on their back, up a mountain, right? They're walking. Then when they get to the top, they're hunched over holding a bag of potatoes. And so the person, employer, in that moment is saying, or partner, or whomever, saying, oh, wow, you have been burdened, but you are enduring. So I can see your strength. I can see your courage, blah, blah, blah. Hired. What if he dropped the bag of potatoes at the bottom of the hill and said, you know what? I'm going to change. This is no longer who I want to be, but I don't have to carry that burden anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they walked up the mountain and they got to the top. And who the employer or partner saw was this tall, strong individual who made it up the mountain and was shining so bright and positively. You know what I mean? Like, either way, you were going to overcome. And but ultimately, and what I mean to say is, like, you were going to be no, better words, please. Either way, you were going to get to the point where you got. At some point, you realized you didn't have to carry the potatoes.
And it's just, I guess, up to that individual carrying the potatoes. It's just what he carries with him, I guess, emotionally, and how he felt.
Right. And it was when you were at that retreat that you saw you could be accepted without the bag of potatoes on your back. That's when you let him go and you let the crying out.
Yeah, like.
And from that moment on, I'm assuming and I'm feeling that you were able to walk standing up straight.
A lot straighter. I mean, it was honestly at that point. Yeah, it was a drop of like a whole lot of weight. I'm like, oh my God. And then, just more growth stemming from that along the way. Which was I mean, it was a huge turning point, but also, there's a lot of work. It's almost like the path is paved to now of the future work that is going to be done.
Right. Right. And anyone who says that they're totally done with healing is a bullshit artist. So don't, we're all still doing it.
Yeah,
We're all still learning.
it's like addictive though. Like any type of growth.
Well, it's that competition side too. It's I am the most. And so this is the thing with pop culture spirituality that you have to be discerning about is, what is the identity that they're showing? What is the medicine that they're touting? Do they feel genuine? Do they feel like a real person? Or are they a perception or a projection of what is the ideal teacher, healer, conduit of spirit, blah, blah, blah?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a lot of well-meaning people who get caught up in the glitz and glam of social media. But it's really important that we are discerning in who we work with. And that goes back to that mirror thing. If we can sit back and say, why do I like this person? Why do I dislike this person? Why am I attracted? Why do I keep being in this pattern of dating unavailable people? It's like you said, well, maybe I'm unavailable to myself, And so those are the invitations for deeper inner work. And those inner works are the times that we are dropping those potatoes. We're allowing ourselves the opportunity for more embodiment of self and soul, or as I say, soul self.
Uh-huh.
So that way, when we are present with the world, we are being more ourselves than ever, and we are attracting people who not only can mirror that with themselves, they are their genuine present self, but also people who can then hold us as we are in the way we are calling to be held.
And like to be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you said, like, our partners are our mirrors, because, like, I start thinking, I'm like, we can't, and I heard this from a couple different places. I forgot who said it first, but, like, we can't notice a characteristic in anybody else that we don't already have. So, if I see something like my wife is highly competitive, like, I like seeing that because, like, that's a part of me, but also that relationship in the people that we don't see, there's a relationship with quote unquote undriven or unambitious or like lazy people, right? I don't like them. But why? There's a relationship there because I feel like sometimes I'm naturally lazy. Like there's a relationship there that I don't like. So
Yeah. Either and or what I have found in myself is that I don't actually know how to slow down. I don't actually know how to relax. I've just recently been challenged. This is the layer of disillusion that I'm in right now, which is, hey, Queen, you keep talking about balance. Like, why don't you live it? And I'm like, cool, cool, cool. And I sat for about 40 minutes with a cup of coffee yesterday morning, looking out at this beautiful, like the snow drenched trees. Birds were eating bird seed and shit. And I was like, how do I relax? How do I do less? How do I do this? And I was like so fixated on the doing and the mental part of it that I wasn't actually just appreciating that I was in the perfect setting to relax and to be relaxed and to do less. But I wasn't in it because I was so up in my head, fixating on how to do it.
that's so funny because again, I'm going. I didn't bring any notes, but I did. I did. I'm looking at my journal, and that's one of the hardest parts. I remember what 2 weeks ago this came, and it was like, hey, I don't feel productive as I slow down, and that's the brain going like, hey, we got to do this, and the body's like, you got to feel stress. But I went down to West Palm and we did this race. I saw one of my friends that was going through cancer, and I just wanted to be there with him. I got my ass kicked at the race, by the way. But either way, I went to the beach by myself and I just sat with, I mean, my self love was a box of pizza and wings on the beach. And I'm like, I got minutes to myself and I was just able to be, I'm like, man, this is it. Holy shit. I am not grateful at all. I'm just thinking like, I got to take care of this. I'm in maintenance mode. I got to take care of this. I got to do this. I got to provide this. I got to pay for this. And sometimes I forget, like, dude, you're very, very healthy. And look at the ocean and listen to the waves. And look, there's a sea turtle. And, all of the things that, like, sometimes we forget in the daily, like, go, go, go. Man, I need to incorporate more of this in my life.
And that goes back to that social pressure, that cultural conditioning of that hypermasculinity or the hyper productivity is thinking like if we take just those 3 minutes to eat wings on the beach, that we're doing something wrong.
Hmm.
And then we feel guilty because now we're probably going to be making our parents proud, disappointed in us. Because as much as, maybe our parents aren't even alive, the point is we still have that inner child who's like, oh, last time we did this, we were in third grade and we got in trouble. We
Hmm.
shouldn't do this. And that's where that inner shadow self is trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us in a place of balance and quiet. Balance being in the sense of like, you're not in trouble, you know? But yeah, it's overcoming those layers of conditioning that are really hard. And I hear you. Like it's that was I remember facing that the first time was winter. I hated winter. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't wait to be back in the sun. And finally I was like, okay, winter's coming and I just need to embrace it. Why do I dislike it? And it's because I didn't like the quiet. I didn't like being alone. I didn't like that it was dark early because I didn't like being with myself.
Mm.
And I had spent that whole 3-month period just working through all of the discomfort I could conjure to then say, okay, why? Let's feel it. Let's have it out. And then finally I started embracing winter. And now it's amazing because a couple years later, here I am being told do less. And I'm like, I can do less. I love winter. We're great. Winter and I are friends. But then I also am like, fuck, I don't know how to do less.
Yeah,
So
like the
that's
birds
my
chirping, and I'm
it's
sitting here watching them. Like, how the fuck do I slow down? Like, because
right.
literally, the next day, the next morning, my journal entry was, I measure progress by output more than alignment. Movement reassures me. This orientation rewards speed over resonance. Behaviorally, I prioritize action quickly. It costs precision and direction and internal agreement. I'm like, fuck.
And that's yes. And so the invitation there, as I am finding it, as you're finding it, and as your listeners may be feeling it as well, especially for men, men are not defined by what they do. But in our world, we are told that my father is in his 80s and he's obsessed about his legacy. How will I be remembered? And it's like, well, in truth, our legacy is not what we accomplished, not the money we made. It's not the houses we owned. It's not even the progeny that we created in our lives. It's the impact we made on each other. It's the way we will be spoken about at our funerals. That's our legacy. And the true legacies that are remembered are not the ones who achieved this and that. I mean, yeah, they talk about that, but it's how it made people feel. And so if we think about that, if we think about that hypermasculinity and the invitation to slow down, it's not always about doing less. That's my invitation right now. Maybe it's yours and maybe it's many's, but the invitation is, can I allow myself to be more than what I produce? Can I be more than my job, more than the money I make? Rather, can I maintain it? Because we have to pay bills, right? Can I still do this stuff? But can I allow myself space in the day to remember who I am without those things, outside of those things? Who am I? Who is Jimmy when not at work, not podcasting, not doing this? Jimmy at home in his PJs, chilling on the couch playing video games or whatever, having breakfast with his loved ones. Like, who is that? That's who you are. It's not what you create and produce necessarily.
So essentially,
does that make sense?
Yeah, if
Okay.
I stripped myself of every accolade, all my titles, anything I've ever accomplished, bare bones, like who are you and what does that represent?
Yeah. And
Are
can
you
you
okay
be
with
with
that?
that person?
If you want to
Exactly. And
hang
if you
out like in time.
can't, right. And if you can't, it doesn't mean you failed or that's a bad thing. But that's a good question to ask is why?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, no, it's okay. If you don't mind, I'll just go a little bit further. And I think the reason, a lot of people, if we boil it down to like kind of just general archetypal energy, the reason why is because at some point in your childhood, the person or the people you admired told you that through achievement, you receive love.
Hmm. It's funny. One of my friends, I mean, Steve Began, when I first started personal growth, he was like, "This is where this comes from," because at some point in a little league baseball game, you won a game, and you got the ice cream, you got the high five, you got hugs, you got adoration, and then when you lost, like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, let's go home. Got some laundry to do. Yeah.
So it's I mean, that's a fine line too, because I mean, there's a line between not having any ambition and being very lazy and complacent and not getting the things that you want, right? And then there's being hyper ambitious and not being able to slow down. And the middle is just like a gray area. It's like what is appropriate, and it's so individualistic. You can't define.
Right. But also, like, just because we fail, just because we don't win that game, doesn't mean we didn't give it our best.
Mhm.
Like, can we normalize nurturing failure? Hold on. When someone gave it their best. Because in truth, we're not all success stories all the fucking time. Albert Einstein, all of the inventors will say, I failed millions of, well, maybe not, like hundreds of times before I figured it out. Like, how many prototypes do we go to until we find the one that works? Oftentimes, many. But yet we as individuals are expecting ourselves to be perfect out of the gate. Something I told my son recently was, I don't expect you to be an A student. I'm not going to, I mean, yeah, sure, we'll celebrate the A's as you get them. But if I know you worked your butt off, not worked your butt off, but I know if you applied yourself and you gave it your honest best and you come home with a C, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like you're not in trouble. And I'll celebrate that too. I celebrate effort, not success or not achievement. And so I think if we take that concept and shape it however you want, but if we can normalize that failure is a part of living, it doesn't mean we failed or we're a failure. It just means that way didn't work. If we can become comfortable with that, it's amazing what that could open up. And then as we sit with ourselves and say, who am I without these accolades, titles, achievements, or whatever? We might find that who is there underneath it all is quite lovely.
Have you heard the story, speaking of which, about rewarding effort? There was a study done in an elementary school, and there was two classes, and um, what happened with one of the classes was they started all the students on like a baseline test, and very easy answers, and the harder it got, their trigger was the first time they didn't know something, they raised their hand, and the teachers celebrated like, yes, yes, congratulations, we found where growth starts, and the whole class would clap, and then that's how they started growing and learning that culture of effort, and not being afraid to fail, but being more cheered on for learning.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I would probably cry because I cry at everything.
Well, I know. I mean, I've been more. I think a kid brought it on, but I've been more emotional as a dad than I ever have. I don't. I might have cried like from 13 to 20 something, maybe once or twice. I mean,
Hmm.
weird, but maybe that's a maturation. But I think, I mean, the point of like the growth is really to like hand it down to the kids, because I mean, I told the boys the same thing even in soccer season. I'm like, I don't care how many goals you score. I will go out for ice cream for effort. Um, and I think that's the growth. Like, I don't care if you mess up. We have this rule that we put in. If you mess up, you go like touch your heart like this, right? Like, hey man, say my bad. And then my
Yeah.
trigger after that is I got you. And like instill that in your teammates, like too. Like as leaders on a teammates, if somebody mess up, tell
Yeah.
them, hey, it's okay. I got you. Right. And that's
Yeah.
all, like sometimes that's all we need. And for
Yeah.
guys, especially, you want to jumpstart motivation and make us feel like we could run through a wall. Get your wife to say in anything, hey, I got you. I believe in you. That is the most motivation that I think I have ever heard. And
Yeah.
I mean, just here recently, I think I was running on a track with Erica, and it was small, right? But very impactful. We were running, and I was, doing a higher intensity workout. And when I passed her, she clapped and says, "Go get it." I'm like, "You should have seen me run." I'm like, I mean,
You were like, let's go.
I know, like the internal motivation, how it makes you feel. I'm just wondering what makes that so important.
And so that is another perfect example of that Shakti energy, that feminine energy, that inspiration or intuition flow, inspiring the active of that masculine. So when I was younger in my marriage, before I became a mom, before I went on my shamanic reawakening and started doing the deep inner work, I I had various traumas in my childhood, in my great childhood, but I also had traumas in my childhood that kind of informed me to be a very fearful person. And one of the things that I was petrified of was disappointing my husband, because I felt like, and I also love that my assumption of what would happen versus reality were always like a world apart. But anyway, I assumed that if I upset him, even in the slightest of ways, that he would just fuck off and leave me. And so it'd be like, where do you want to go to dinner, Mar? And I'm like, oh, I knew what I wanted for dinner, but I didn't ever say anything. So just, I don't know. Where do you want to go? He's like, I want Chinese. I'm like, okay, well, go get Chinese. Meanwhile, I wanted Italian. Like, but I wouldn't say anything. But then I would build and build and build with tension, the way that we will tend to build on top of our already filled space, filled with those unfelt emotions, right? I would build on top of that. Instead of exploding out with anger, I would explode out with this really unhealthy behavior of like passive aggressive guilt trips.
Mm.
And so, and the reason I don't actually know why I was drawn to say this story, but I think in what I would do is, instead of saying what I really was feeling, I would make it about a way that he had hurt me previously and that I didn't like it. And now this is not an unusual story. I'm sure many of your listeners are like, oh, I know what that's like, because we always make
Absolutely.
jokes about the wife keeping tabs from 5 years ago. And I think what I say it is because if that's the energy that we're getting from what would be that divine feminine Shakti inspiration, if we're getting like insecurity and resentment, then there's something there unhealed that's blocking that divine energy from flowing through. And so as the masculine, or as the man, or as the supportive energy, there is the opportunity and invitation to say, what could I do differently to hold this feminine energy, to hold this female or this partner, so that they feel safe to just be honest the first time.
Yeah.
To tell me, how did I hurt you? An exercise that Neil and I did years ago. That's my spouse, my husband. I don't even remember it was probably Brene Brown or someone other amazing therapist, counselor person, well published. And it was this exercise of like, what I love about you is, and we say 3 things, uninterrupted. You cannot interrupt your partner until they are done, and then you can respond to it. So what I love about you is, one person goes, then the response, then they go, and then the response. What I have dreams for, what I dream about or want for us or you is, maybe it's you. And then the third one is what I'm afraid of is. And so it sets the groundwork of like, this is why I love you. This is what I want for you. And this is what I want for us, basically. And then this is what I'm afraid of. And you've created that foundation of love and protection and safety. And then you move into the reality of, okay, this is how I've actually been feeling. And it was a really beautiful way that opened us up. And then that then turned into me saying things like, okay, I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling myself wanting to go into a passive aggressive outburst. I just need 5 minutes to go breathe and to really get to what it is that I'm trying to say, because you have told me I'm safe to say that. And I want to say that. I want to have an honest conversation. And then that became the norm, where I would take a few breaths and then I would just be honest, and then we would handle that. And then that opened up to more of my own inner work, which then led into, I don't even know what the next phase was, but I think I mentioned all of this as to kind of normalize, like, it's okay to be the first one to make the change so that the two can grow together.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, I bet it just gets easier and easier. I bet the first time you did that practice, it was hard as hell and
Oh God, yeah.
awkward. And then it's probably now, I mean, I'm not going to say normal, because those are still like very intentional conversations. But I mean, I'm looking at it from like the masculine point of view. It's like, hey, like, what do we do in this situation? It's like, all right, yeah, we just have to keep stable and not go into fix it mode like we normally and want to do as guys. Is like, oh, she has a problem, I need to fix it. And that's one of the things that I um, have done a better job of. I'm not going to say I'm a master or expert by any means, right? Because it's like a dance. Like, you're either getting closer or farther, but we're not going to leave the dance floor. But it's dancing. But one of the things I learned is, like, when Erica comes home and she has, not mad or anything, or has an issue, like, I don't fix it. I'm like, hey, internally now, I'm like, is she looking for me just to listen, or does she really need help? And she does a really good job of saying, I need your help with this. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. Like, I get the help. Or like, if she doesn't say that, then I'm like, automatically going into like, I'm just here to listen.
And that's beautiful that you two have worked through kind of the dynamics that are needed by one another. And I think it's hard for people to be the first one to open their heart, because especially if we've lived a life where we haven't been as held or loved or seen or supported, it can be hard to, it's essentially that reparenting while parenting thing. It is me doing the thing for you that I wanted for me but never got. And we often stop there and say, well, fuck that. I'm not doing that. That's unfair. What about me? And our inner child comes out screaming with a tantrum, and understandably, because they're hurt and they're like, what do you mean I have to keep giving and being the bigger person here? But if we do it knowing that a solid partnership, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but then you guys will work through it. And the next thing you know, both your inner children are like having an ice cream about it and being like, this shit's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, eating my ice cream and like, this was so much easier than what we used to do. Like,
Exactly.
you can get to that point, and it's beautiful, but it does require the discomfort of going inward and saying, what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? And can I let it out to make space for that intuition to come in, that divine wisdom that I have an inherent, innate access to? Can I make that space for it so that I can be more in the balance of my doing and my being? So I can honor my partner so that they can honor me and we can honor each other. And as we do that, we change the way we're parenting and we change the generation that follows us. And we make space for the generation before us to just be as they're going to be, because oftentimes they're not going to change, but we do it with compassion because we've done the inner work to feel love in ourselves. And sometimes, like how we're going full circle here, sometimes we need help with that. And that's
Yeah.
when we have our plant medicines come in and give us support. We're not meant to do this alone. Spirit is in all things. It's in the air that we breathe, and that is the wisdom. It is in the fire that we use to warm our hearts and our homes and our food. That is the passion and the reminder that we can't have passion without sustenance, feeding it. And that's that earth, the foundation of what we believe in and who we are. And then the water cleanses us of that which we've learned and outgrown, both in terms of integration and shedding. It is the flow that teaches us surrender to spirit, so that when we come back into spring, we come back into the breath, we're ready for that truth to drop in. It's all connected, Jimmy. It's all connected.
That is crazy. And I'm so glad that you introduced me. I'm going to say her just like you do. I'm so glad you introduced me to her. And I mean, this is with your guide, with your because I'm going to reach back out and say like, hey, what are my next steps? But it's fun so far.
Yeah. And it should be. And Cacao is so playful. And to answer the question from earlier on, the reason I say she is because I think of, in the 70s, I think is when the people started thinking about the earth as a mother in order to help steward the environmental protections and awarenesses of the impact that we have as humans. And so we started seeing her as Mother Earth or the earth, but it's truly genderless, right? It is energy. It is this source energy. And so if I think personally of the earth as this life giving and life supporting and life receiving, and as we die, we go back to the earth. That is the mother, the womb of which we are born, the tomb of which we are then buried into. Like that is the uterus, that is the womb, and the tomb to me is the female body in a sense, metaphorically, of course. And we see that with Celtic work, right? You see the kind of passage tomb, place of initiation, as well as rebirth, as well as where we would often bury. In some parts of history, people would be buried. It was always in the cairn, and the cairn is this mound on the earth, kind of like a mons pubis, and a doorway at the base of it, quite like the vulva opening. And then the sun peeks in, if that's not the masculine energy birthing, bringing life into the darkness of the womb to create life. It's all, anyway. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a lecture there,
No, that's fine because I like
but I think of the earth as a woman, and so if this is an earth medicine, and it is about heart opening, how often is that? It is very masculine because it's about feeling safety and feeling held, and that's Cacao. It's very masculine, but it's also very feminine in that it's this inspiration to feel and release and to, I guess that's also kind of masculine, is to express, but like, it is of the earth. It's very soft and supportive and gentle and walks with you holding your hand. So I see Cacao as a female, but that is just me, and many people will be like completely against that, and they're like, oh, you can't gender plant medicine. Yeah, true. It's just sometimes it's easier, and I just don't think too hard about it.
like you said before, like I got an open heart and I'm totally open to that. Um, how are you not doing this like full time? I feel like everybody like you're doing a book, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm writing a book. Hoping it'll be done by the end of the year and ready for all of the joy of whatever comes next, and at the end of this year or into next year. But yeah,
Well, it comes
it's go ahead.
when it comes. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's medicinal, man. As I'm writing it, I am walking it. And so the reason it's taking longer than just writing a book is because I'm actually my life is responding to the medicine of each chapter. It is a guided journey through the death to rebirth process with Irish goddesses in each chapter. And it incorporates breath work, it incorporates somatic healing, it incorporates a little bit of mythology. Myth is medicine. It's spectacular. I think so. But I'm really excited about it.
Well, that's, I mean, one, amazing. And all right, so when people are going to like reach out to you, like you have a website, right?
Yep,
What
it's
is,
super easy. It's www.marthamw.com. So it's Martha Medicine Woman, but MW is also my initials as Martha Wright. So it's Martha MW. And so sometimes someone was like, "Is it Martha Wright?" I'm like, "No, but that's okay. It's Martha Medicine Woman, so marthamw.com."
and then
Yeah.
socials, social media?
Yeah, I'm on social media. I have my YouTube is under Martha Wright Shaman, which was my previous moniker.
Mhm.
I don't know how to change it.
I know, right?
I'm not technologically
Just
advanced.
let it ride.
But that has like the repository of all my videos. And then I have Instagram, which is Martha Medicine Woman, and stuff is on there.
Well, put it there. So this is going to be on YouTube and Spotify. I think
Right on.
Apple iTunes or Apple, what is it? Podcast, whatever. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I have them all automatic.
It's the things with the apps and the people and the faces.
Well, this is awesome. I feel like I got a masterclass. Uh, really, really amazing. This is probably one of my favorite conversations ever.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, it's been a delight. I love talking about this stuff. Talking community, commensality is a word I learned recently, which means sharing food and drink together. This is all healing. This is healing in itself. Healing doesn't always have to be amidst a table with crystals all around it and sound bowls. Like sometimes it's just being seen and just talking, and that can be healing. It's in everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I truly feel that. Well, thank you, Martha.
Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. And thanks to all those who are listening.